Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Our top story tonight, answering the question on the top of everybody's mind. Do birds prefer pink nests? Because new research suggests some zebra finches would rather defy their flock than compromise on decor. And honestly, same. I'm here with someone who's done research in this area. She's an animal cognition researcher at the University of Alberta. Her name is Julia Self. Julia, what a joy it is to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I love that you chose as your research area the color, the preferred color of a certain type of bird's nest. What got you interested in this as a research area?
Yeah, so I got into this in my undergrad, and I just love animals, and I think birds and the way that they build is just so cool to have this architect in a different species. And I was also interested in how birds make decisions, and so we used color as a stimuli, but it's just really exciting to see how they build, and who doesn't want to know what an animal's favorite color is?
Right? Mine's sparkle. Is that even a color? I don't know. How do you even discover whether a bird wants a certain color of nest? Like, how do you set up an experiment like that?
Yeah, so we give them different choices of material, and we found that some birds just very strongly preferred one over the other. Like, they would spend hours and hours playing and interacting with and building with pink, for instance, and they wouldn't even, glance at the green string. And so it was cool because we saw that some birds had these very strong preferences. And anytime you see this variation in what animals do, it's exciting because you're wondering why they have this variation. And so, yeah, giving them these options allowed us to see their favorite colors.
What does it actually mean to say that this bird, the zebra finch, has a color preference? Like, how do you know it's not just random or just that string was closer to me?
That's a great question. So we know this because we can change a bunch of other variables, like where in the cage the string is, and have these birds build multiple nests, and they'll just keep choosing the same color. It doesn't matter where it is. And so we also see that, if you're a bird who likes green, you're going to keep liking green, like my experiment finds, even if, you're in a group that all builds with pink. So these preferences are robust over time within these individuals, and there's variation among birds in terms of what they like, which is cool.
And how much do these birds like these colors? Are they basically like ignoring what all their peers are doing, getting obsessed with the color, or are they just kind of like, yeah, I guess I prefer pink, but whatever?
Yeah, so that's the cool part, is it depends on the strength of the preference. So some birds are kind of ambivalent. They're kind of like, whatever. Whereas others are just, they will not even, look at the other color, touch the other color. And so it really depends. The birds who have really strong preferences will just ignore, what their friends are doing. They don't care what anybody else does. They're sticking with what they like. Whereas these other birds, where they kind of don't care, maybe they like pink a little, they like green a little, they use a little bit of both, we see that they will change their mind and that they will, copy their friends and stick to the flock, basically, if they don't care so much.
Honestly, kind of relatable. Like when I was a kid, if my parents bought me a new Lego set, once every quarter or whenever they did, and my friends wanted to hang out, I'm like, no, thank you. I'm going to stay in the basement and play with these small blocks. Is that what these birds are doing? They're just like, don't care about what's going on. And why would they not care what's going on with their peers? Why would they love this color so much?
Yeah, so I had the same questions when I first saw these results, seeing how, they could have a flock of birds doing something else and they're like, forget them. I love pink. But then when I thought about humans and how we behave, kind of like how you mentioned with the Lego, it made sense to me. I mean, I think we all know someone where you're like, doesn't matter what I tell them, this person is never changing their mind. Might be politics or religion or something that really matters to this person. Or even, concepts we have within ourselves. I know I have strong opinions about some things. And so in humans, we see that if we have these strong opinions, it doesn't really matter what other people say. And so I think it's kind of the same with birds, right? They have a really strong opinion. It doesn't really matter what others are doing. In my own life, if I don't care so much, if I, don't care, it's a coin toss in terms of what I like, I'm probably more likely to copy what other people are doing than if I'm really convicted in my opinion. And so when I think about it in terms of humans, it makes a lot more sense than when we just think about it in terms of birds.
And it just goes to show scientifically birds are people too, said no scientist ever. Okay. For the birds that have these strong preferences, do the males do certain things with the nest building pink stuff than the females do?
Yes, this is really exciting. So in zebra finches, the males select and deposit the majority of the nest material. And for a long time, we referred to the male bird as the primary builder, and we thought that he did almost everything. But there's new research coming from our lab, led by Dr. Ben Whitaker, that shows that actually the females are doing a lot more than we thought. And so in my experiment, we examined the male behavior because of, previous research, but I'm excited to see, the female's role in nest building being more examined here in the future.
I mean, this mirrors the last 10,000 years of human history, too. And honestly, I'm not surprised. Are the females doing different stuff with the nest materials than the males? And can a female override the male's preferences?
So sometimes. So in my experiment, there was one pair of birds, a male and a female, where the female just deposited all the string. And that was really unusual. And I told my colleague, and, combined with their own observations, they decided to examine this question because for a long time we thought, the male selects and deposits, the female might rearrange. And now we're seeing the females doing a lot more. Some of them deposit, some of them don't deposit at all, some a lot. And so we see a lot of variation among these pairs and in terms of what the male and the female are doing, which is exciting. And I think also kind of reflects like the variation we also see across species in our own lives in terms of what individuals do. And it's exciting to see.
I have to ask at least one serious question from like a conservation perspective. Does understanding how animals use or ignore nest materials, how they engage with each other socially, these birds, does this help us with any conservation efforts?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand why animals do what they do and what information they use. Because I can imagine with climate change, with, change in biodiversity, if, a certain species of plant, for instance, went extinct or was a lot less available, and we needed to seed or train birds to do something else in order for them to build nests, we would want to know how that information could flow, how we could have these populations adopt this information, and, how we could potentially integrate this. The UN released a climate accord and talked about culture and the importance of animal culture and conformity and learning from each other in these biologically important behaviors. So we now know nest building is important, but in that particular program, they talked about migration behaviors, hunting behaviors. So how animals learn from each other and acquire these important behaviors is really fundamental. And so although on the surface it's like really funny, like pink string in a nest, there actually is a lot of implications potentially in terms of conservation efforts.
You basically took the words out of my mouth. Like here you are messing around with a bunch of pink string and nest materials, but there's these big questions that apply too. The tension though in these birds between individuality for ones who kind of insist on a color and just want to focus on their nest, and then the other ones that kind of conform to the flock. Speak to me more about that.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see how different individuals prioritize their own opinions versus opinions of others. Maybe these birds who are weakly biased, maybe they're just people pleaser birds and they're just relying on, or bird pleaser birds, I guess would be the term here, but just relying on others to make decisions. And so it's really interesting to see how different individuals balance their own preferences against what others are doing. And it's exciting to see, in the future research, what we might examine with that.
Julia, if you could build a nest, what color would it be?
It's got to be blue.
It'd be orange for me.
Orange, yeah.
Well, Julia Self is an animal cognition researcher at the University of Alberta. Julia, thanks for coming on the show, sharing your research. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
My name is Mickey Fox.
Friday, February 27th on Global.
I'm Sheriff of Edgewater.
For her, keeping the peace
Cartels moving in.
means every investigation.
People are getting threats.
It's close to home.
At the end of the day, I'm responsible for this town.
Secrets, loyalties, and small-town justice collide in the new hit drama.
I'm a damn good sheriff.
Sheriff Country returns Friday, February 27th on Global. Stream on Stack TV.